And just about to turn 9:18. If you're just joining our coverage, we are talking about the storm damage that is now in the aftermath of those powerful storms that hit West Michigan. Right now, nearly 200,000 people are without power across the state of Michigan. We know hundreds of crews are out across the state trying to make those repairs to the Consumers Energy system. Joining us live right now is Tracy Wimmer with Consumers with an update. Tracy, I appreciate your time this morning. I'm actually looking at the map right now on my computer, and we're at about 189,000 people across the state without power. That number was about 208,000 at peak last night. So it does appear that those hundreds of crews that are out there are making progress. Can you kind of tell me about the main problem areas they're tackling right now?
Yeah, thank you so much for having us on this morning. Like you said, we've got over 500 crews that we were preparing yesterday afternoon once we knew that the storm was going to be really significant. And so we even set up mobile command centers. We had one in Battle Creek, one in Portage, and we've been operating out of those. And obviously, the biggest issue is the severity of the damage that we're seeing, which is really heavily concentrated in southwest and West Michigan. And as you guys have been covering this morning, in places where you've got multiple trees that are down or you've got things that are entangled, not only does that create problems for our crew when first we have to get in our forestry teams and do damage assessment, and then after that we can come in and once things have been untangled we can do the actual restoration work. But of course, you've got situations where trees are blocking roads and so we can't get through. And so our crews are doing everything they can to get the power back on as quickly and as safely as possible, but as we've seen, there is a lot of damage, and so we're very grateful for everyone's patience and understanding as we get to work.
Yeah, I know that these crew really do work hard. They try their best to get this power restored as quickly and as safely and efficiently as possible. Speaking of as quickly as possible, I know at this point might be hard to put a number on it given the wide variety of power outages across the state, but at this point, can you offer up a time when we might see power restored to the bulk of the state, or maybe at least in the West Michigan area?
Yeah, so we're working to do everything we can today, but unfortunately, we do know that another wave of storms is coming tonight, and so that's going to have an impact on restoration because not only as those high winds come back through again, will it be difficult for us to get boom trucks up and have people up in the air doing that kind of work, but we also expect that there will probably be some more outages that come through tonight, and so at this point, it's hard for us to say. That's why our priority is just getting as many back on today and this afternoon as quickly as possible, so that we can be prepared for whatever may come through tonight.
Yeah, how do you plan for a second round of storms to come through after a major round of storms? I mean, I know that that can't be easy, especially given the different crews you have to coordinate across the state. Can you kind of explain that?
Yeah, unfortunately, we've had a lot of experience with that recently. As we saw up north just a month ago with the ice storm that came through, and then we had another wave of storms that came through down south. But the reality is we focus first on restoring as many people as possible with work, right? So obviously, we have priority places, things like hospitals, water treatment facilities, schools, as much as we can that we target. But then after that, we're looking at, okay, what is the place? What is the job that we can do that will get the most number of people on with this restoration, right? So we start with the bigs and then we move down to the smaller and smaller restorations where it's going to be 3 hours of work to get one neighborhood back on, right? And so by targeting those big jobs, after we've gotten those priority customers restored, our hope is that we can, like I said, get as many people on as quickly and as safely as possible today, so that whatever happens tonight, we'll have those crews available to get back out there and get back on the job, which obviously they're tired and, they're working as hard as they can. But that's also why it's important for us to continue to bring crews on the system, so we were adding more throughout the day yesterday and now we're over 500 and we'll see what happens in the next day or so.
Yeah, our thoughts are certainly with them as they go through the next 48 hours and, the days and weeks ahead, as they work to restore power. Let's go through some of the practical things, maybe some common sense things people don't necessarily think about. When we're rolling up on a live wire or maybe a power line that's down that we're not sure is live or not, can you offer some advice to folks that might see that out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the number one priority is safety, of course. And so if you see a line down, even if there's no power in the neighborhood or no power at your house, you should always treat it like it's live. And that means you should stay 25 feet away, not only from it, but from anything that it's touching. And this is especially important when we're talking about situations like, the storms from last night, because then you're looking at a lot of debris. And I completely understand, people want to get out there and start cleaning up as much as they can. But the reality is, if a line is touching something, you should not be touching it. So we want to make sure everybody stays safe. But then second, if people are concerned that maybe we don't know about it yet, or they think they need to report something, you can always check our outage map. And if it shows that there's already an outage in your area, then the chances are we are aware of that particular downline, or any other lines that are within that outage. And you can always tell if you see a little green outline in the outage that's in your area, that means we already have a crew assigned. So you can count on that. If you don't see our trucks out there yet, you're going to be seeing them very soon because they're on our way.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at your map right now, and I can see that green outline on a lot of I keep calling them blobs. I know that's not like the technical term for it, but that's what they look like on the map. And you can tell that there
Sure.
are a lot of crews assigned at this point. So that is a little bit of good news to offer if you're without power, you're looking to get that power restored. What about people that might be driving up on a scene where a crew is working on a power line or a power pole, utility pole, what have you? What should people be doing? Should they kind of veer away from them and let them do their job? What's kind of the advice on that? I know that they don't need any more people. They just don't need the extra worry when they have other people around rolling up and asking what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing is, if you are curious, just stay back. We certainly don't shy away from people seeing the work done. I think it gives people a good sense of actually how much work goes into a restoration effort, even if it seems like it's something as simple as reconnecting a line. The priority is safety, not only for our coworkers as they're and the crews as they're getting that power restored, but of course for anybody who's nearby. And so just make sure that you're giving them lots of space, especially if you see a truck in the road. Even if you don't think any other cars are coming or anyone else is nearby, please give as much space as possible. You never know when somebody's going to be coming around the corner, or when, they might be finishing up a portion of the job that's then going to require them to move the truck. And so we want to make sure that everybody is maintaining a safe distance so that we can get, like I said, that power back on as quickly and as safely as possible.
Yeah, I know consumers in the last several years has done a lot of work to, not, I guess, bury, I guess, some of the wires involved with the power system to kind of, when these storms hit, they're not as impactful to the grid system. And I know you guys have contingencies in place that you're working toward. How has that process played a role into this? Have we seen those issues mitigated in areas that may have been without power this morning after a storm?
Yeah, absolutely. So our reliability roadmap, which is sort of our glide path for the investments that we're going to be making to strengthen the grid over the next several years, which obviously, we're seeing significant weather events like what we saw last night happening more frequently and with more severity. And so we know we need to build the stronger, more resilient grid of the future. So undergrounding, like you mentioned, has been a big part of that. We've already completed our first pilot of it, which was burying 35 miles throughout portions of the state last year. And we're continuing to do that burying work. But it's also things like increasing the frequency with which we do tree trimming. We're aiming this year to do over 8,000 miles of line trimming around and above them. It's installing new technologies that allow us to detect outages or even the potential for outages before they occur, so we can address those issues. One of those is we have Spot the Robot Dog, which is a robot that uses infrared technology to patrol our substations and monitor for potential issues. With a little bit keener than human eyes, to help us get in there and do that work. But all that goes into saying that, obviously we can't control Mother Nature. We can only control our response to events like this. And so doing all of that work, it does absolutely reduce the number of customers that could have had an outage, but also does help us um, have an assessment of how quickly we can restore power. And so, for example, you look at last year, 93% of our customers who experienced an outage had their power restored in under 24 hours. And that's a really big deal. That's up from it was in the high 80s in 2023. And, we're going to continue to aim for 100% because that is one of our long-term goals is that no customer has an outage for more than 24 hours. And so all that's to say it is a lot of work when there are not storms so that when we have storms, we can do things a little bit more quickly.
All right. Well, Tracy Wimmer, we have to leave it there. We appreciate your time. And of course, I'm sure we'll be talking to you as the days go on in the wake of some of these storms. Tracy, we appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.